We'll send it to your parole officer so he knows where you were today.
Just take those pictures for our newsletter.
Would you like to share that remark?
I would.
Okay.
Okay, while you're at the podium.
While I'm at the podium, my vice flotilla commander, who we conned into the job, just elbowed me and said, you know, one of the things you should never do is have your vice flotilla commander come to one of these sessions. He finds out what he's going to have to do in 2 years.
Jet skis are gone.
And then you might not have anybody to relieve you
That's
then.
right. Then you've got a permanent assignment.
You know what? The two of us can.
That's why they created the 2-year term limit.
That's right. Thank God.
Two of us. My friend says a couple were done.
But there are occasions where you can get dispensation.
He's not going to get me to do that.
Yeah. Come on.
Are you going to do this by
Yeah,
yourself?
Like I'm ready to take over, and I'm going to get a 1-year term.
Yeah. Cool. Well, smile. Yeah, wasn't working, it's not anymore. We're going to talk about staffing for a few minutes. And the,
I want to thank y'all for being back on time, by the way.
staff is appointed by the flotilla commander in conjunction with his vice flotilla commander. The vice flotilla commander is the chief of staff, so except for 2 or 3 exceptions, all of the staff reports to the vice flotilla commander. The FSOSR, FN, that's Secretary of Finance, report to the flotilla commander. Uh-oh, now what? It was working just a minute ago. Let me see.
Just click on the image. That should usually do it. BC commander.
Probably. I'll go through my paces again. What you're going to learn today is the appointment of flotilla staff officers. We've talked about it some. The recruiting process for internal and external functions, mentoring and training, developing the flotilla staff officers, and the personal security investigation. You are going to find that a good flotilla staff officer is your best friend, can help you more than anything. And a flotilla staff officer that is just there in person and is not doing much is putting the workload on you or somebody else. So when you're going through your process of mentoring and training and recruiting, and be careful, make sure that you get people that are interested in what they're doing, that they don't have to know the job 100%, but you need to be able to train them somewhat, and that will help. Every unit senior elected officer appoints a staff. We talked about that. The elected officer delegates the authority to the staff officer. So John Wright is going to delegate training to his member training officer. And you just, that's why they become your best friend. If they will take care of you, that you'll get reports from them. They do their job. They'll come back to the vice flotilla commander and say, I've set up boat crew training or coxswain training or 1-hour TCT, or I've taught gonna schedule an 8-hour TCT for such and such date. They're the ones, the staff officers are gonna make things happen in their own little world, and they're gonna tell you about it, and then you help them relay that to the membership, and you help them promote it and get the members to attend the training. Staff officers, when you're appointed, they need to know, last year my first year as my division staff officer for member training, and after the election, I sent Chuck a letter of resignation. And I got an email from Chuck saying, why did you do that? And I said, you know, I serve at your pleasure, and if you want me back, you'll ask me back. I mean, that's the way I took it. That's pretty much the way it is with all staff officers. They serve at the pleasure of the elected officer, the flotilla commander, the division commander, the commodore, you know, whomever. You need to make sure they understand that, because to this day, we have one fellow that thinks he was fired. He was not fired. At the end of the year, he just wasn't reappointed. He was never fired. He did his job all year long. He did a good job. He got recognized for what he did. He got awards for what he did. But he swears he was fired. He wasn't fired. He was just reappointed. I mean, he was not reappointed. Someone else was appointed in that position. And for logical reasons that he will not accept. New members are normally not a staff officer. They need a year at least, and sometimes 2 years, to learn what the auxiliary is about, enough to be a flotilla staff officer. Now, if they're really want to do something, say, okay, I've got a member training officer that's going to be moving on out in a year or two, so why don't you shadow him, or an IS officer, and put him as a shadow, and let them work that way. As we all know, or have seen, staff officers can hold other positions. Many of you probably have 2 or 3 positions. One thing that you're not ever going to see in writing, but if you think about it, it's very logical. Everyone in this organization is a volunteer and has a finite number of hours that they can give to this volunteer effort. And if they're being a staff officer here, and a staff officer here, and a staff officer there, that's all fine and dandy. But let's say, last year I did 150 hours underway on my boat because I wanted to. I enjoyed it. This year, because of all the different jobs that I had, and it wasn't that many different ones, I just picked up a little more work in them. I have only done about 90 hours or 100 hours underway. And I would like to have been back up there close to where I was last year, but I just didn't have time to do this and that. And I'm retired, semi-retired. I have more time than most people. And still I don't have enough time to do what I did. So when someone comes to you and says, okay, I know I'm this staff officer, but I'd like to be this one and this one, talk to them about, you know, is the flotilla going to get the most bang for the buck? If they're going to get the most gain from you holding 2 or 3 positions versus this other thing you're doing, and you have to weigh it, which is more important, which helps the flotilla the most. In our case, in my flotilla, we're not going to gain 100% of the silver ore because I lost almost twice the number of hours. We need 30 hours to complete the operations category, and if I'd have done my 50 or 60 more hours that I normally do, we would have had that category months ago. So, you know, you have to weigh that when you're talking to your staff officers, you know, and explain it to them that way. But you're not ever going to find it anywhere, but you can see where it's just going to work that way.
I hope that doesn't weigh on your mind.
No, it doesn't bother me that much, but it's just a fact of life. you know, and how do you want this, and where do you want this, and, you know, and we don't always talk about facts of life, but it's there. And it,
What is a lay leader?
okay, a lay leader, like, okay, a lay leader is maybe not a full-fledged minister. Like I've been trained and qualified as a Stephen minister, but there's no way I could start up a church and, you know, like you would know.
That's what they're talking about in.
So, a lay leader would be somebody who has training. If you think the flotilla needs someone like that, my suggestion would be first to go to the active duty side. I know that the Navy has chaplains that service the different bases around here, and they can talk to you about that and how best to select. I'm not saying that they would be it, but they can talk to you about how best to select a lay leader. And they're gonna be on top of the regulations on all of that, which I'm not. To carry out the auxiliary programs, a flotilla commander can appoint up to 16 staff officers. Might not need 16. Might be that your flotilla is only active in 5 different programs and you only need 10 officers to cover the things that you need to do. So, you know, if you're not doing marine safety, or you're not doing VEs, you know, you don't really need that officer. I know one flotilla that doesn't have a VE officer, and the only VEs they do is they have one VE, and he inspects their boats once a year when they need, when the OPFAC needs an inspection. And he makes sure that he gets enough other ones done, that he stays current in that qualification, but he became one to be the official flotilla OPFAC inspector. This is staff appointments that you can, the 16 of them from operations, publications. That, if you're not doing a newsletter, might not even need publications. Materials, pretty much need that one. Vessel exams, optional. Secretary of records, you're gonna need that one, you need it. Personnel services, again, this is from our 1999 manual, that's called Human Resources now. Member training, communications, marine safety, public affairs, you just go on down. CFN on there, yeah, there it is, number 11. But you're gonna need a finance officer. Now, you're going to appoint, when they talk about internal functions, the internal functions we're talking about, if you look at C, the internal functions are finance, information services, materials, member training, what is?
Personnel
It's
services.
HR.
Member resources.
HR, public affairs, publications, and secretary. Then external functions, which you need at least one, are going to be ATONs, which is now Navigational Services,
Career council.
communications, program visitor, we don't have the MV anymore, program visitor, ops, public education, and so they're telling you, and the page we're looking at is out of the Flotilla Commander's Procedure Manual. And so they're telling you in that manual, this is what you have to have, and these are the ones that are optional. then well, again, it can hold more than one office concurrently. In some cases, you can actually, I've seen vessel examination and program visitation, one person hold those two offices. They're very similar. The training form is almost interchangeable. You have to really know both of them. You have to be able to be a good VE. You have to be able to answer questions that you're going to learn from your program visitation training. And at the same time, when you're doing public affairs, you need to be strong in those two areas, because you're going to be getting asked a bunch of questions about boating safety, and so it's the two go together. They fit together real well. So you can combine those. When you determine your goals, we talked this morning about meeting with your members and meeting with your staff and setting up your goals for the year. And when you determine what those goals are going to be, then, and you see why we say, you know, the first 60 days after the election, you've got so much to do, and you're just not going to get it all done. But you especially want to have officers that will support the goals that you're trying to accomplish during the year. And by doing that, just because we say you have to have your officers report, the 7007, turned in by the 15th of December, at any time during the year, you can change out an officer if somebody transfers out, moves away, somebody comes in. You know, you can always add to that and make another report to DIROC saying, okay, I've added this person as a officer for NS, or you know, whatever it is. It is, you don't have to wait till December of the next year to do it. You can add to it and take away from it during the year. Selective recruiting might be that if you have a Coast Guard person who's, I know 6'1", has an active duty Coast Guard person at Galveston, and so they selected him for a certain staff job, NS, mainly because when he first got in, he was on the Mississippi River out of Tennessee on a big old buoy tender, and that's all he did every day, you know, for 2 years as they worked the buoys in the Mississippi River. So NS is just a natural for him. So they were selective in doing what he did. If you have a person that's good with human resources, and maybe that might be their job in the workplace, you might want to see if they're interested in doing your HR job. Then when you're selecting your staff, you want to say, okay, our goals are this, I need to fill, these are mandatory positions, these are optional positions. You know, you're going to look at your letters of appointment, okay, the qualifications I'm looking for, okay. And like Pat said, you can read through there, you can look at those letters, and you can actually customize them to fit the goals and of your flotilla, and you can add to, take away, you know, change it to fit, and that way, the member, when you give the member the letter, they will better understand what their job is. The organization, what organizations are formed around these interests. We work National Safe Boating Week with the Coast Guard, the Boating Safety Council. I mean, there's until you get learning some of these things. There are a lot of other organizations that we get feedback from, in one way or another, usually through the Coast Guard. But we also get feedback directly from them. Texas Parks and Wildlife, when we're doing the fireworks regattas and the Christmas parades and the blessing of the fleet. These things we're working with other organizations, so you need to have, make sure your staff understands, if you're gonna, that your ops officer understands, okay, we're gonna support these fireworks regattas, we're gonna support the Christmas parade. You know, gives him a little time to think about it, and he will be notified, like when the meeting the week before the Christmas parade is going to be held, and if he has any boats involved, he'll want to let the coxswains of those boats know when the coxswains meeting is. These are other organizations that he's working with. You know, how complicated is the position? Do they need an assistant? Some cases it's not very complicated, sometimes it is. But that you just have to, and it depends on your goal, so you have to go through that. When you're interviewing the staff, I like to have eye contact, but my wife says when I talk to her, she can tell how I feel, because sometimes I have friendly eyes and sometimes I don't. And she's usually not the reason I don't have the friendly eyes. It's just something else happened somewhere along the way. But still, if you are going to have eye contact, hopefully it's with friendly eyes and not from something that some idiot that cut you off a block down the street before you got to your meeting place. You know, but tell them what the job is and how interested they are, and it's more about what, as a staff officer, they can do for the flotilla, the division, the district. It's more about what they can do to help the flotilla to accomplish the goals. I mean, I've been on interviews for new members, and they said, "What can I get out of the Coast Guard?" I said, "What can you give us? Let's talk about it." I mean, it's a two-way street, guys. It really is. And we want to give back to our members, but we also want our members, for them to stay interested and productive, we have to take from them. So you look at that. Have they completed the patronage readiness form? I mean, that's it. When you open that thing up, it looks